Thank you, thank you. Y'all are always so sweet here. So this is the first time I've gotten to speak in person at ProfCon. I've spoken at the last two, and it is an honor, absolutely an honor. And I hope that this is of benefit to you. So I'm going to talk about something that's called high impact practices, and how can you apply that to a simulation so that you can make your simulations have more engagement with your students. Okay, a little bit of background. First of all, we're going to talk about just an agenda. So here's the professor and me, right? We're going to talk about what is a high impact practice, because that probably helps to get that defined. So we're going to talk about it, why you would consider using them, what they are, how do you implement them into a simulation, and what does it mean to you personally? A couple of years back, the University System of Georgia decided that every university within the 26 institutions within the University System of Georgia would implement high impact practices. They said, we don't have enough student engagement, we need to be able to measure that engagement. So there's a goal that we would go from a measured 42,000 students that are participating in experiential learning classes to 150,000 by next fiscal year. So they started a process, and I represent the College of Business for my university in this process. So what is a high impact practice? The high impact practice has been endorsed by the American Association of Colleges and Universities, AAC&U, as a way for post-secondary institutions to scale engagement for students. They're teaching and learning practices that help the students learn in different manners. They have deeper learning. And they take different forms and different characteristics. There are 11 high-impact practice strategies. So you would look at these if you wanted to understand, if you wanted to implement a high-impact practice, you would look at this and say, does this fit into one of my classes? So there's first-year seminars and experiences, common intellectual experiences, learning communities, writing intensive courses, collaborative assignments and projects, undergraduate research, diversity, global learning like study abroad, e-portfolios, service learning and community-based learning, or doing work-based learning internships, and capstone courses and projects. We're going to talk about these last two in today's process. So now that you've decided what strategy you're going to use, you have to have an element associated with it. How do you make that HIPS element work? So there are 8 elements. And in our university, you must have at least 2 elements associated with your strategy for it to be considered high impact. If you have 3, you're doing even better. So you can't just have, we've named it, we do one little project, it's one little thing, and we're now high impact. That's called a low impact course. And there's a whole process of how can you evaluate low impact to move to high impact. So the ones that are highlighted are the ones I'm going to talk about today. Performance expectations set at appropriately high levels. Are you setting the performance expectations for your students at a high level for them to really have to work to succeed? Are they putting in a significant investment of time and effort over an extended period of time? Again, this isn't just one project, 1 week, and done. Are you interacting with faculty and peers over substantive matters? So are you talking to your students and providing that type of conversation so that they're getting that additional learning versus just a lecture? Frequent, timely, and constructive feedback. Are you providing them feedback in a timely manner so they can implement it on their next part of the project? Periodic structured opportunities to reflect and integrate learning, and doing a public demonstration of competence. So why? Okay, so that sounds like a lot of work. Why would you do it? Well, first of all, this helps students develop their workplace skills. And these skills transfer to multiple settings. They include, if you listen, what we just went through is communication, problem solving, critical thinking. When your students graduate with these skills, your university's getting a good reputation out in the marketplace. They're going to come look for your students. So today, we're going to talk about simulations and how you can apply these impact practices into simulations. Now, when I landed on this weekend, Monday morning, I had something pop up in my email, and it was from Harvard Business. And it was an audio on simulations. And the comment was, are simulations appropriate or do they matter? And I thought, well, we already know that. We don't have to discuss that one. We know that they do work. But how can you make them better? So I'm going to talk about 4. I use 4 simulations every year at my university. I'm going to talk about the professional selling internship, the digital marketing analytics internship, the digital marketing internship, pardon me if I say Mimic Pro sometime, or social media internship. So I'll give you examples for each one of these on reflections that I've used to help the students do that reflective process for the deeper learning. Professional selling internship. I teach this in the fall on campus and in the spring online. So I have to have the same deliverables whether I teach it on campus or online. I do use the simulation, but at the end of each round of the simulation, I have a reflection. So this is just an example. I would put, some type of preface to it, give the instructions associated with it, and help them start learning. And oh, by the way, I will send you all, this will be available, and I will send you a copy. If you email me, I'll send you all the reflections and be glad to expand upon it, so if that'll help with notes. They have to learn how to provide an analysis for a colleague. That's something new, right? And so they have to analyze data, and they have to get ready to start talking about their sales presentation as well as evaluating another person's. So these are the questions that I ask. Why do salespeople find prospecting challenging? This is the first round. Name 3 reasons. So now they have to stop and think. Well, if you think about from a salesperson perspective, prospecting is really hard. It's uncomfortable. So now they have to tell me why it's hard. And that it's reasonable. Everybody has that. In 1 to 2 paragraphs, share your learnings from this simulation round. I always want them to tell me what their thoughts are. So here's an early feedback. Your 1 sentence, right? I learned that it is normal to find prospecting challenging. That's an easy answer. I thought email prospecting was old school. That's interesting. I was able to identify where in the customer pipeline and prospecting phases my coworker and I need to improve. So there's some thought going on, not very deep yet, but you can tell they've run the simulation. Now, I'm going to just back up a second and tell you, when students were running simulations before I did this, it was like, okay, I did it, check, and move on. And I'd go through and look and see what they were doing, try to get some idea, but there wasn't as much thought process to it. But they were running it, they're getting benefit of the simulation, but was it the maximum benefit? Here's a second example. So in this assignment, and it keeps going on, you'll keep developing your sales proposition, et cetera. After completing, you have to write a 2 to 3 paragraph. Now we're getting some depth to it. 2 to 3 paragraph reflections on your learnings from the above, including focusing on learning from each other's videos. Here's an example. This is later. We've gone from 6 words to the internship in professional selling was a valuable learning experience that provided insights into the sales process and the strategies that can be utilized to improve sales performance. That's a whole different type of conversation going on now. So they've gone through the simulation, and you can tell now they're learning. I enjoyed this internship, and I'm happy that I was able to improve in consistent accuracy as I approach the final rounds. Seeing the certificate, so if you haven't done this, there is a certificate at the end of the simulation. Seeing the certificate, which detailed all of the learning points from the program, really put into perspective how much I've gained as a future salesperson. So again, we have that reflection. Now, I don't know about you, but I will tell you, I could run and teach this class, and then when it was over, ask my students something, and they wouldn't be able to repeat it. So they were not able to bring out that type of conversation when they were interviewing. But now they have this, and they're able to say, yes, I learned these skills. Here's my certificate associated with it. And it has made a difference in employment. Final project, so remember they had to have a public demonstration. They had to do a final project to demonstrate your understanding of professional selling, having applied it in a simulation, and the learnings in the course. It's only a 3 to 5 minute video presentation, but they did have to do it. Again, practice those professional presentation skills. And then it's to showcase the learnings, not a rehash of the simulation. So from a faculty perspective, before the simulation was incorporated, before I did it, now remember I have 20 plus years of sales experience, I'm perfectly comfortable with teaching sales. They were resistant to utilize video. They didn't want to do it in person either. Ran the simulation, and all of a sudden, every one of those students had their videos done. They're talking about feedback. There was a hiccup one week, and the video didn't show. I didn't get feedback on my video. Okay, so they're paying attention. They're looking for it. With that, they were able, so before, they were at Bloom's taxonomy at the remember stage. And then, as they go through it, they're now able to apply it and analyze it. But those reflections make them stop and think. Next one. This class is only taught online asynchronous. Digital marketing analytics internship. They've run the simulation. Now, I don't know, how many people have done the simulation? Okay, a handful. Just to let you know, the first 4 rounds are A/B testing. And you change 1 trade at a time. Students think that they're going to be so smart and change 5. Well, I wanted to change all of them. I didn't like any of them. Well, which one worked? I don't know. Okay, there you go. So they were having problems tracking. They were having problems deciding what did I change. Now, the simulation is very good. It's been updated, and it tells you exactly what changes have been made. But that's just provided to them. That doesn't mean they stop and read it. So I made them go through and jot it down. All right, which one did you change? What was the trial number? Oh, and they'd stop halfway through. Why'd you stop? Well, I don't know. Okay, you have to go all 20 rounds or tell me why you didn't. You have to try all 20 trials, not rounds, all 20 trials, or tell me what business reason you had for not completing it. And if you had a business reading, that was fine. So what they want to change, the change made the results, and which one did they keep, so they could track it. And it helped them find which one was their best performance. And also, make sure they didn't duplicate things. Oh, I'm gonna back up. At the beginning, it also tells you, create your hypothesis for your decision making. Well, if you're not creating your hypothesis, which I will tell you 99% of the time they did not, then why are you changing it? I just felt like it. I just thought that needed to be changed. Okay, that's great, but that's not marketing. So they had to create their hypothesis. It has to be documented, and they have to tell me why they created that one. And then at the end, which was your final submission number, which we know it shows it in the simulation. But why did you choose it? And what would you have done differently if you were running this particular simulation round again? Every time I run a round, what would you do differently? Because I want them to think, how would they approach it now that they've had that learning process? And it gets them in that frame of mind as we move into others, as we move into more internships or simulations on how to focus and think forward. From a faculty perspective, I'm able to see where they're confused, because when they state their objectives, they start looking at things. Sometimes they forget to change that there's a different measurement. It's a different KPI for each round. They'll say, well, I was still looking at maximizing returning customers. Well, that's not what this round was about. And so you can help them understand. Otherwise, they may have scored okay, but that didn't mean they did the round correctly. So this is how I'm able to help keep them, especially in an asynchronous online class. They have to track their changes. They conduct post-simulation round analysis, and it helps us understand why helps me understand where the students are having difficulty. Then I do an end of the course reflection. So every round has a reflection. Every reflection is different. And I'm just going to put this out there. Yes, I have small classes. The maximum number of students I have in a class is 40. But you could do this in a large class. But if that's the case, you might have it as a discussion board or a round table in groups where you have students get together and talk about it. So end of course reflection. I always ask, what was your biggest learning? What additional learnings did you have? And how will you apply your learnings in your career? I want that application thought. What was your favorite part of the class? If you have a friend that is interested in taking this class, what advice would you give? And then I always give an opportunity. What else? You never know what's going to bubble up. And from a Bloom's taxonomy perspective, now the students know how to reflect, acknowledge, and verbalize their learnings. They know how to verbalize, how to apply them, and they also share their favorite part of the class. So it lets them think about the happy times because these are hard. And my classes are full. I'll just put it that way. They're very full. But now they're able to, on Bloom's taxonomy, understand and apply. This course is the first of 3 in the digital marketing major. So I'm okay if they're not in analyzing and evaluating. I want them to set the foundations. Students' biggest learnings. Everything that was covered, the simulation, little details count, CRM, how important it is to have a strong digital marketing plan, look for the greatest improvements versus a quick win, how to create an alluring website design. So it's a pretty broad comments. Students' favorite parts of the classes, the first half of the simulation for A/B test. Go figure. The whole class, the simulation, it showed both my weak and my strong points, the actual simulation rounds. We do industry certificates, but they also get the simulation certificate. The class was hard for me, but most assignments allowed us to showcase ourselves. So even if it's hard, this person got a win. The next one is the second course in the digital marketing degree called and we use Digital Marketing Simternship, again, online asynchronous. First round. So this is the old Mimic Pro that's now Digital Marketing Simtern. First round, answer the below questions and submit. What ad groups did you create? Why? What keywords did you choose? How did you choose your keywords? What is the name of your campaign? How many clicks did you generate? Just some concept. Are they able to even read their dashboard? Because if you just run the simulation and say, click, done, look at the score, you don't know if they were lucky or they know what they're doing. How much of your budget did you allocate and how much of your budget did you spend? For some reason, this is a hard concept. It's a hard concept, but eventually they'll get it. What created the variance and how can you narrow the gap? Again, trying to get them to start thinking in prescriptive type of analysis versus plus or minus. Was your performance strong? And it's amazing how they'll say, no, I'm so disappointed. I wish. So if it's not strong, they're willing to acknowledge it so they can move forward. What would you do again and what would you do differently? Again, there's those reflections because they're moving forward into another round. The last round here, what changes did you make to optimize your ad? So these are going through very specific things. And then I'll say, what was your total revenue, et cetera? What would you do differently? What were your learnings? Last round, what were your learnings? So from a professor perspective, I'm looking at Bloom's, and we're now at the apply and analyze stage. So reflect and verbalize learnings, increases ability to communicate with a prospective employer, verbalize the learnings application, and again, always sharing the favorite part of the class. All right, we're not at one sentences anymore. Check out this, we're at a paragraph. I learned real-world experiences. I learned how to create different campaigns that had different goals and strategies. It was a learning experience. I was able to see my mistakes and correct them. Safe environment, right? That's what we want them learning. I also learned how to work with a budget to get things done. I learned how to apply my readings and what we've learned in this course. It was informative and kind of fun. I enjoyed the simulation. I'll take kind of fun. Next one, I enjoyed, and by the way, I didn't cherry pick these. I just took the first 2 or 3, I just opened up the course and took whoever had a B, C name. That's what I did. I just took them straight out. I enjoyed the simulation overall in this class. I enjoyed learning about the differences and types of ad campaigns and how important it is to understand the target audiences of each kind and how to create those audiences based on the target personas of the company's product. I learned how to interpret results and focus on the assigned KPIs and make adjustments based on them. Man, have we changed the conversation level? It's a big difference. Again, so much more in running a successful campaign than just ranking for keywords. Properly identifying keywords, doing really well on your campaigns, knowing the difference. Having a designated landing page. Again, now they're showing comprehension. Okay, now we go into the third one, social media mentorship. This is the third, and I said, remember I had capstone on that as part of our elements. This is treated as a capstone course at the same time with our digital marketing because they've had to take the courses in order, and we are now in the third one. So start out, round 1, what was your analytical process? So we're really trying to drive that analytical thinking at this point. What did you use for your analysis? What were your results? Were they what you anticipated? Were they better or worse? And what will you change moving forward? So we're really getting into that analysis, and that's on round 1. And then it talks about, in the next one, we're at round 7. It starts talking about influencers, what would you do differently? Now I'm at round 12, and it's the last round. Congratulations, you've worked so hard to learn, you can now post, etc. Congratulations on all of your knowledge. This is your last chance to bring it all together to perform your absolute highest and best. So there's the gauntlet thrown. If you goofed off last time, don't goof off this time. What is your analytics review process? What are you doing? And they have to document it. How do you decide what budget to allocate to your post versus to your influencers? What's your decision-making process? How do you decide your posting schedule, etc.? So what are your SMART goals? Did you meet your goals? Why or why not? And always, if you had one more try, what would you do differently? And from this perspective, we are now applying, analyzing, and evaluating. So we have moved up from understand up to evaluating in these 3 courses by taking it step by step and building those reflections. Again, treat it as the capstone. It's the 3rd simulation in a row. We have tied it into a community engagement project during the same course, but not tied to the simulation. But they are bringing it all together. Students' biggest learning, so much data with social media marketing. I underestimated the workload. Yes, they always do that, and the science. But again, they're trying to figure out that this is not just your Facebook post. How many walk in with this preconceived notion of, oh, I'm going to do this because I can post on Facebook, and I do TikTok too. And then they stop and say, oh my, but they really start engaging in it. It's okay to learn and improve and okay to need help. That's a big one. That's a big one for them to be able to say, I don't know it all, and I'm going to learn it now. Prescriptive analytics. Social media marketing is more profound than the average person knows. I'm going to go back to prescriptive analytics, where I say, anybody, if you want to make money, it's not going to be because you can add and subtract. Here was my budget, or this is what I forecasted for my goal, and I made the variance. If you can't tell them why and how to move forward, you're not going to make the big money. That's who's going to make it. You've got to know prescriptive analytics. The simulation, the takeaways from the social media simulations. Their favorite part, again, I think this is interesting because, as I mentioned, I just took the first 6 students that were in the class, or first 5. Community project, social media simulation, community project, working with my teams from digital marketing, which was, again, partnership. But the people that said community project also said their biggest learnings were the simulation. So right up there with it. So today I've talked about 4 different internships. So this can be applied to multiple different internships. So did professional selling, digital marketing analytics, digital marketing, and social media internship. The elements we covered were setting those performance expectations at an appropriately high level, investment, significant investment of time. These courses are only 8 weeks long. They're accelerated, so it's a 16-week course taught in 8 weeks. So they are really pushing it to get this done. And we're interacting on a regular basis. And they're also talking to their peers. They have group, because they've been working, and notice that last comment was, I got to work again with my digital marketing group. Frequent, timely, and constructive feedback. The simulation gives that immediate feedback and that score, but then they get that additional feedback. Periodic structured opportunities to reflect and integrate learning. I do it on every round. That doesn't mean that's something that's appropriate for you, but that's how I run my courses. And then they do have to do end-of-course presentations. Now, I said this would be, how could it impact you? So, for example, I mentioned that I am the College of Business representative for the university system on the high-impact practices. Well, let me tell you, you better believe that went into my performance appraisal. I documented, I do high-impact practices. This is an important concept. It is studied. There's research on it. It's written up. So, greater student engagement. If you're getting paragraph results, you're getting greater student engagement. They're completing the work. They're calling and saying, I'm not sure about this, or they'll email and say, I don't know about this. I paused my simulation until I get an answer from you. So increased student learning. They enjoy the class. I take kind of fun, but there's even more. Class visibility. If you're getting this type of information, and these students are going out. I have one student that just sent me a LinkedIn note that said, I just got hired as an intern. And by the way, this firm hires interns only postgraduate, and they keep them for 6 months and then place them in their agency. And they use that to figure out where they need to go within the agency, which areas their focus. She said, they are so impressed with the knowledge I've received through the simulations. Great visibility, that gives your students better opportunities for hiring. It gives them better opportunity for internships. I have people reaching out to me saying, would you send this out to your students? I need an intern. Job placement, and then again, adding it into your performance review, talking about what you're doing to increase high impact practices, student engagement, and deeper learning.